Welcome to this published authors show. My name is Kenneth Muyingo, and with me I have a special guest that I will be interviewing. First, I just want to mention, if you would like to write a book and become an author yourself, to write your first book, there is a link with this interview for you to join the group, become an author and write your first book, to connect with like-minded people who are doing the same. And with that said, I would like to get into the interview by asking our guest to say hello to our viewers and listeners and to introduce herself.
Hello, good to meet you. My name is Dr. Barbara Lavi. I'm a licensed psychologist in Connecticut and Massachusetts in the United States. I've been in the field for many years, started out in Israel as a clinical child psychologist during the Yom Kippur War and wrote my master's thesis on helping children to deal with death, father absence, and war. And have continued throughout my career to focus on issues of trauma, so that it's part of my work. And I do critical incidents after things like 9/11, the Boston Marathon bombing, Newtown, which is close to where I live.
Yeah.
And in addition, have a clinical practice. I've written 2 books. One is the Wake Up and Dream Challenge, which I wrote several years ago. It helps people to accomplish their dreams, even if they seem unrealistic at first. And it's based on techniques that I've used with clients over the years. And then when the pandemic started, I decided that I needed to do something to help children to understand it and cope with it. And I actually have a copy of it here.
Yeah.
Rama, I'll try to make it, I have to get in front of the camera.
Yes,
Rama's
yeah.
Loneliest Lama. And the idea came to me. I usually do Zumba on a regular basis. And because of the pandemic, I haven't been doing much Zumba except at home next to my computer. And I started walking. And in my neighborhood, believe it or not, there's a family that owns a llama. And I began to walk by the llama almost every day. And the llama would come up and every time somebody would pass by, the llama was coming to the fence and trying to connect to people.
Yeah.
And I thought that would be an interesting children's book about a llama that's confused about what's going on in the world and why they're lonely and why they can't go to school. And I'm not an artist, but I have artistic tendencies. And I contacted my nephew in California who has a young daughter. And I said, and I know he can draw. He's a musician, but he's also an artist. And I said, can you help me? Because I can't draw the characters. And he actually drew the main characters in the book. And I put them together with pictures to make them work with photography. I've done some playing with that. And turned out a book, and I rushed it through to do it as quickly as possible, and posted it on Facebook as a free download so that anybody can get it for free if they go to Rama the Loneliest Llama and like it. And it says buy now, but if you click buy, it allows you to download the digital version.
Yeah.
And then I put it on to Amazon for a print version if anyone wants it.
Yeah.
And that's paid.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of doing it into an audiobook. I haven't done that yet, to read it to kids as well. And so that's the book that I just did. And it's the first time I did a children's book, but it was actually a lot of fun.
Amazing, Dr. Barbara. Thank you so much for making time for this interview out of your busy schedule. And so 2 books. Wake Up and Dream Challenge. I want us to first go back to this one. It's tell us what inspired you to write this book.
Oh, goodness. It started many years ago. Another thing that I do is I write songs. And I spent a number of months and summers in Nashville doing songwriting. And when I was there, I went to a conference by the Nashville Songwriters Association, and there was a psychologist speaking, and I thought, oh, that's cool, right? And in Nashville, people do multiple things. It's not uncommon for you to find, lawyers and doctors and other people who also do songwriting. And this psychologist used a technique to help people to accomplish their goals. It was a goal-setting task. And I liked the idea and decided that I would do it.
Wow.
It took me a while. When he was in therapy with people, he would say, do it or don't come back to your next session. It took me longer than that to do the task, but I began doing it and I saw that it was helpful and I altered it. I changed it to my own, to make it more my own. And I encourage people to use it as quickly as they can and to use the task because it helps them to start moving towards their goals. And I reconceived it as a dream positioning system, which it's a DPS, sort of like your GPS, except that when you use the GPS on your car, you go from one place to another. When you use the DPS, you program at least 10 dream destinations. You can have more than 10. But you program it from way out in the future. Like at the end of your life, what you want to have accomplished, your wildest dreams, and you program it backwards to where you are now. And by the time you get to where you are now, it's a to-do list of things you can do tomorrow that are simple to help you move towards your dreams. You renew it once a year, or if your life changes significantly. For instance, if a pandemic broke out, it'd be time to maybe redo your dream positioning because everything shifted so much. Or if you break up with someone and you had written them into your life plan that you were going to marry them and have kids, you'd have to redo your dream positioning. And I give examples of clients that I've used it with and how they've accomplished their dreams despite adversity and despite difficulties. I also connected it to several nonprofits that help people accomplish their dreams even when they seem impossible. For instance, one of them is the Blind Judo Foundation. I didn't even know that blind people could do judo, but there's a wonderful foundation that helps blind people to compete in the Paralympics, which is not Special Olympics. The rules are similar to regular Olympics, except that they're set up for people with various disabilities.
I just learned something new. I didn't know this as well.
So that and a bunch of other wonderful, wonderful nonprofits, and I write up about them and how they help people accomplish their dreams as well. So that was my first book, and it took a lot longer than the children's book. And I'm working on a third one.
Very nice. We will talk about the third one. So the DPS, you have sparked my curiosity, Dr. Barbara, as far as this is concerned. So the book is Wake Up and Dream Challenge, and
the Wake Up and Dream Challenge, and it's on Amazon.
Yes, and what you talk about in there, you have given us a hint about the DPS, and you can just reposition your life ahead. And if somebody's watching us right now and they're like, this is really great, but if they would like to reposition their life or to get into repositioning their dreams because they feel like what you've mentioned, COVID has hit, and maybe the plan they had is out the window. The job that they were planning to build their future around has been pulled from them, and the rug that they thought they were standing on has been taken right from under their feet. What can you share with them, knowing what you know about the DPS?
Well, you can do it at any time and with any challenge. And certainly what we're living through is, I mean, I've been in the field a long time, and none of the kind of tragedies that have befallen the countries that I've been in have impacted the world the way that the pandemic has.
yeah,
And I think psychologists and therapists across the country are struggling to answer the need. And I think we will be for some time.
indeed.
But life challenges us all the time. I opened that book with a story about a client who, before I met her, was thinking about suicide and planning to put her head in a gas oven. She was
Yeah,
that distraught. She suffered from chronic pain. She couldn't work. She didn't know how. She had been getting support checks, and her child was grown, so they were going to end.
yeah,
And she just didn't know how she would survive.
yeah,
And she wrote, I'm misquoting her probably, but she wrote something like that since she used the dream positioning and did therapy with me, that she pinches herself every day to make sure she's awake, and that she figured out ways to put together multiple small streams of income. She was crafty. She was able to do multiple things. She was able to do a tiny job that was flexible, so that if she was in a lot of pain, she didn't have to do it.
yeah,
She learned hypnosis for her pain, and was able to work a little bit more, and to do a little more. She babysat for one of her grandchildren on one day a week. She made crafts and sold them. She did a little bit here and there, helped her children when they would travel, and so she built a life that she never imagined she could do.
yeah,
And other stories like that I have as well in the book. The pandemic, we need to be creative and put on our thinking caps to figure out how to do things that we want to do, even if we can't be around people. And it's not natural for human beings. Most human beings tend to be social beings,
indeed.
some more, some less. But hermits are very rare. They're maybe less than 1% of the population.
Indeed.
So this pandemic is pushing us to be hermits for a while. And we don't like it, but we have to find ways to use Zoom to connect with people. Somebody designed a way that you could visit your elderly parents in an old folks home by building this plastic tent
Yeah,
with a plastic insert for your arms
yeah,
that would be covered, and you could hug your parent. And
yeah,
they showed pictures of it on TV. It was amazing. So
yeah,
if we put on our thinking caps, we can come up with ways to do things that we think are impossible,
indeed.
and make them possible. Also, we need to remember that it's going to pass, that the Spanish flu did pass. It devastated the world. It
Yeah,
killed many, many people.
yeah,
But life went back to a new normal. And hopefully within a year or two, we will be in a different place. And I think it's better to think further rather than think it'll be next fall or next spring.
yeah,
Because if we think too close, we're going to be disappointed. Well, we
yeah,
won't be disappointed if it happens sooner.
yeah,
But if we imagine that next, June, we'll be able to be having normal weddings, and you plan a wedding and then it can't happen, you're going to be very
disappointed.
upset.
Yeah,
So I would suggest having backup plans and having secondary plans and tertiary plans even,
yeah,
because the virus is unpredictable.
indeed.
The other thing that I find myself repeating to many clients is if there's nothing you can do about it, then let it go. We don't know how soon it's going to be over. We can't control that.
Yeah,
But if you have an idea and you think it can help, then even if you don't know how to do it,
yeah,
let somebody know who could do it. And I'll give you an example.
yeah,
I saw on television that there was a lack of protective gear.
yeah,
And then I saw in another TV program that 3D printers could make protective gear.
yeah,
And I live in Weston, Connecticut. In Westport, Connecticut, there's a library that has a beautiful 3D printer.
yeah,
And the library's closed. It has been since February or I don't remember when.
Ah,
I don't know the head of the library. I'm not involved in the library, but I decided to send an email to the director of the library. I wrote to the director of the library. I said, look, I know you've got a machine. I know nobody's going there. The person who runs it could go in and make PPE. And
ah,
you probably know all the libraries in the country that have 3D printers.
ah,
Why don't you try to set something up? And I forgot about it. I sort of did it and said, I've done my thing. I can't do it. And about a month later, I noticed in my stack of emails an email from the director of the library thanking me for the suggestion and telling me that he had started a program and was doing it. So if you have an idea, it gives us, it helps me to feel that I'm doing something and making an impact, even if it's a small impact.
indeed.
And you feel less helpless in the midst of a pandemic. So if there's something you can do, even if it's small, go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
And I
Well,
think it's true of planning for your life as well. If there's a small piece that you can do, you're going to feel better.
you're gonna feel better indeed. It's because in a way, I think the way society is set up sometimes is to paint a picture that we are sort of powerless or that we are without options. And thinking about still the wake up and dream challenge, if I have had conversations with people, and sometimes they say, "Yeah, I had dreams. There's a season that I had dreams in my life, but that's all behind me now. I I think I'm past the point of dreaming." Knowing
Well,
what you know with wake up and dream, what can you share with them?
I'll tell you a story to answer the question.
Thank you.
I have a good friend in Israel who is a speech therapist. She ran a school in Israel for autistic kids. She's amazing. And she came to visit around when I wrote my book. And I gave her a copy the first night that she came to stay at my house. And she had retired from her school.
Ah,
And the next day she said to me, I couldn't put your book down. And you know what? I thought my dreaming days were over, but I realized they're not. Since that day, she went back to school. She did her dream positioning. She went back to school. She became a psychotherapist. She always she was a speech therapist, and she had a good bent on psychotherapy, but she wasn't a psychotherapist.
ah,
But she became an analytic therapist. Her husband was working and traveling to China frequently, and he said, I'm tired of going back and forth from Israel to China. I want you to come for a year or two.
yeah,
She went to China. She's back in Israel now, and she continues to be active and following her dreams. So it's never too late to follow your dreams. There are people that are 80 years old and they start bicycling and
yeah,
they travel around Europe on bicycles,
yeah,
and they started when they were 70. I mean, so if I was at my gym, the one
yeah,
where the Zumba classes are, and
yeah,
I saw this guy doing gymnastic things that I was like, I can't believe you're doing it. And I said, what are are you practicing for the Olympics or something? And he said, no, I'm a trainer. And then he gave me a video of a woman that he started training who could never do lifts and things like that. And she started at 65 or something, and she was around 70, and she was doing these kinds of things. So if you decide that you want something badly enough,
yeah,
you can do it. Now, if there's a medical issue that stops you, you
yeah,
may have to find a workaround.
indeed.
But even with medical issues, like the first woman that I talked about that had severe chronic pain,
Yeah,
she found ways to work around it and was doing the things she needed to do.
indeed.
So
Well, so there is always a way if it's not too late.
it's never too late.
Too late.
And again, physical disabilities don't have to stop you either.
Indeed.
There are people that are doing things. If I once I bought a couch in a yard sale,
Yeah.
and it had a terrible covering, and it was it was sectional, so it was fairly simple,
Yeah.
and I didn't like the material, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try to recover it. And I'd
Yeah.
never done upholstery, right? And I went to the library, the Westport Library, and got a book. And I don't know who the author is because I didn't keep a copy of it, but in the preface it said that many people think that upholstering is hard,
Yeah.
and therefore they don't try it. But if one person can learn to do something, anybody can learn to do something.
Yeah.
And that principle, that idea, if you think about it,
Yeah.
if one person can learn to do something, so can you,
Yeah.
if you put your mind to it and really work at it. If a
Indeed.
blind person can do judo, I can do judo. Now I have to want to.
Yeah.
I personally haven't gotten into judo, but if I really wanted to, I could do it.
Yeah. Indeed. Wow, that's very inspiring indeed, Dr. Barbara.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. And so you mentioned also that you published a second book, Rama, the Loneliest Lama.
Right.
And you told us briefly about what inspired the book, the walks that you have been going on, and so can you tell us more about this one?
Well, my feeling about the book is that because of my past as a clinical child psychologist, and I still see some children, it's not, mainly I'm seeing adults, but I do see children, is that I was concerned about how hard it is for parents to talk to their kids about what they're seeing daily on the television, even if they don't watch much television. You
Yeah.
can't turn on a TV without images of this horrible pandemic.
Yeah.
And you can't escape the fact that they're missing their friends. They're stuck home. They're not going to school. They're doing, telelearning. Their lives have been changed drastically.
Indeed.
And parents don't know how to talk about it. Parents don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And because of my early experience from war and tragedy,
Yeah.
I know about talking to children about tough topics. And what I did is I sort of combined my songwriting, past and poetry and the knowledge that I know of kids. And they're little things that like in a children's movie
Yeah.
that parents will appreciate. For instance, on the first page, I used to be Rama, the world's happiest llama.
Yeah.
And on the shelf in the room, there's a sign that says, "Make the best of what you have. Don't dwell on what you've lost."
Yeah.
And then there's Rama's hoof print on the
Yeah.
wall and pictures of Rama going to school.
Yeah.
And then every morning it shows what happened in the beginning when what life used to be. They used to get up in a rush just to make it to catch the school bus.
Yeah.
And he saw his friends every day, and they're all other animals, and
Yeah.
kids identify with animals.
Indeed.
But lately everything has changed. The world feels so strange.
Oh my.
And that's the world they're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Schools had to close. My parents are working from home. I'm feeling confused because they turn off the news whenever they talk about COVID.
Yeah.
They don't think I've heard of COVID-19, but I've heard it, and other big words like coronavirus and quarantine.
Yeah.
I've heard the weird words, but what do they mean? And so the problem is set. This is what's happening. The kids are questioning. They understand something's wrong, but everybody hushes their voices when coronavirus comes up or when they can't talk to grandma.
Yeah.
And their mom's cleaning all day and we have to stay 6 feet away from others.
Yeah.
And the parents are stressed and they're leave me alone, I'm on the computer.
Yeah.
So, and I stay at home all day in my pajamas. I've become Rama, the loneliest llama. And
Wow.
then it goes to the solutions and how to talk to their kids about what's happening.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that was my idea, that I know about how to talk to kids. I know that they're scared even if they don't say so.
Yeah.
I know they're sad. I know they're worried. I know they're afraid. And I can help parents, and I encourage parents to read it first.
Yeah.
and they read it with their kids and answer more questions as they come up. And so that's it. You know, it fits. It fits with what I know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's, you know, I feel like I'm doing something that can help with this crazy time.
Indeed, it's very beautiful, Dr. Barbara, and the way you bring it, it's I could even say it's relatable to even the parents,
Mhm.
because there is a child in each and every one of us,
Yeah.
and sometimes uh, because we are so busy with the everyday reality of living, we don't pause to actually pay attention to what's happening. So when a book like this is presented and then the parent has to read it before they can understand it and communicate it to the child, I think it also does something for them.
It ends with, I promise my dad and mama from now on I'll be Rama, the most helpful llama. And there are things like, this isn't forever, it's just right now. In soap we trust, and be kind with a mask. So again, it relates to the parents as well, and it gives them things that they can do, that kids can do.
Yeah,
Um, so that's, you know, I I think part of psychotherapy and part of why therapy helps is that it's not just that we wallow in our sorrow or our fears,
yeah,
but that we find ways to cope with them, and we help people to find the ways to cope. And this book tries to help parents find ways to communicate with their kids and help both themselves and their kids to cope with what's going on. And we're all overwhelmed. I mean,
yeah,
that's the, you know, therapists as well. It's not just the entire world is feeling this.
indeed. Wow, that's very well said, doctor. And for adults who find themselves in a tough place, you mentioned earlier in the interview that you helped you help with uh, uh, parent childhood, like children who have issues with their fathers, or adults who have had issues that impacted them and are affecting them in their adulthood, something like that.
Uh,
And
yeah, we all have.
yes, and if somebody's watching this and they find themselves in that place, that their childhood experiences, or they were not loved by their father the way they thought they would have, they were supposed to be loved, or that their parent was not there for them the way that they thought parents should be, and they find themselves struggling with this now, what would you share with them, knowing what you know?
Well, one of the things in my first book that I talk about is that we don't choose our parents. We have varying degrees of parents, from very good to not so good, you know, the whole normal curve.
Yeah,
And if you didn't have a parent that supported you the way, and supported your dreams the way that you would like, or supported you through tough times, then I encourage people to adopt a dream parent. And a dream parent is mentors, coaches, even public figures that you know or have read about or learned about,
yeah,
that might help you learn how to treat yourself better. And so you can adopt any parent you want
yeah,
and try to parent yourself like a dream parent. You can learn to do that over time. It's not easy, it's harder.
yeah,
And you may have to work through some of your feelings about the parent who didn't parent you the way you wanted. But we all can learn to parent ourselves differently, and to take care of ourselves differently, and to build ourselves rather than put ourselves down if we had parents that were more negative, or
yeah.
put down our dreams.
Oh, it's thank you so much for that. So adopt a dream parent.
Yeah, adopt a
This is
dream parent.
I will remember this. And you mentioned a book that you're currently working on. Can you tell us about that?
Well, it is. I've had several clients and I've had family members who've given birth during this pandemic. And the idea came to me that to do sort of a spin-off of what to expect when you're expecting. And the working title is something like what they didn't tell you to expect when you were expecting and how to manage it.
That's,
and and I'm using, it's interesting because I thought I was just going to be writing about the pandemic, but it also brings in images and memories of my own from living in Israel through wars and parenting
yeah,
when I was a young parent,
yeah,
and coming up with things to help people with the unexpected kinds of things that are happening to us all now,
yeah,
and and addressing not just the early phases of pregnancy and birth, but also just parenting during this pandemic.
yeah,
So I'm working on it. I've done maybe 3 or 4 chapters on that. It's going to take longer than the children's book,
yeah,
but it's been I've been thinking about how my clinical work and my personal life was impacted by wars and tragedies, and how I found ways to be resilient. I was a positive psychologist before there was positive psychology. I didn't invent the term,
yeah,
but that's what fascinated me about psychology, was not the people that fall apart and end up in psychiatric hospitals, but the people that are challenged by horrendous tragedy and somehow are functioning well.
indeed.
The Elie Wiesels in the world.
Yeah, yeah,
And I worked in Israel with people that were Holocaust survivors as well. So I mean, that it always fascinated me. I had someone from Westport that was a boat person from Vietnam, and had been adopted, didn't know what happened to her family, and you wouldn't know at all if you met her on the street or met her at work.
yeah,
And people like that have always fascinated me, and that's what psychology, what I want psychology to do, is to help people overcome adversity.
indeed. Wow, that's very powerful. Thank you so much. And
Okay.
so that's a very memorable working title. What they did not tell you to expect when you are expecting.
Hmm.
Did I get it right?
Yeah, something. Yeah, that's the working title. It's a little long, but
Yeah,
I tend to
it's
have
just
long
memorable.
titles. I should be shorter with them, but I tend
No,
to have
I
long
didn't even write it down, but I have it. It's so
titles.
it's a really good one. And yeah, so where
I,
can
I
people buy
need
your
I
books?
need extra hours in the day to get up all my things accomplished.
Ah,
Right?
I see. Um, so if somebody's watching this interview and they would like to buy your books, where can they buy them?
Well, the digital copies are available. The digital copy of the Wake Up and Dream Challenge is online. The paper copy is on Lulu, and I haven't done anything with them in a long time. I don't even have a paper copy right now.
Ah,
But the digital copy, even if you don't have a Kindle, you can download it to. They have a program that you can download in your computer, and I think it's like it's inexpensive. It's not terribly expensive.
ah,
The Rama, the Loneliest Lama, is print by demand
ah,
on Amazon,
ah,
or for free you can just download it and read it to your kids. I wanted it to be available to anybody.
ah,
um, I'd love for libraries to purchase it, but libraries aren't even open, so the
ah,
paper copy doesn't matter. I happen to like the paper copy, and it's fun because you can see it and the pictures come out really, really cool.
yeah,
But I didn't write it to make money. I wrote it because I want to help parents
ah,
with what's going on.
indeed. Wow, thank you so much. And if somebody would like to contact you, Dr. Barbara, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Um, I've got multiple ways online. Um, there's Rama, the Loneliest Lama on Facebook. There's the Wake Up and Dream Challenge on Facebook, and there's Act Now Psychotherapy, which is my private practice, also on Facebook. or drbarbaralavie@aol.com, which is fairly simple. and I, I do check my email. It gets a little bit bogged down from time to time, but I do check my email.
Very nice. We'll put those links with the interview so that people can access them.
And I hope that all the authors find their way to put it down. Regardless of what happens with your writing, it's therapeutic to write. And I believe during these times, writing is helpful. It's helped me.
Yeah.
Writing that book, that children's book, was helpful for me. It was healthy for me.
Yeah.
So.
Very nice. And this was very inspiring, Dr. Barbara, and I'm so glad we made time for it. Before we finish the interview, I wanted to ask, is there anything else that you would like to share that we have not been able to address in the interview?
I'm doing one other thing. And again, it's taking longer. I thought it would happen during the summer. It's probably going to happen more like in January or February. But after the Black Lives Matter became just overwhelming here, and I couldn't go out on the streets because of medical issues, I decided to help organize a writing and drawing and video conference contest for children from kindergarten through high school, answering the question, why Black Lives Matter to me?
Yeah.
And I'm working on that now with a bunch of people helping me, and it will come out soon. And I want as many children as possible to take part in it. It's a way, again, for parents to talk to their kids about this horrible social injustice in our world.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing I'm working on. And if we get the artwork and essays, we may turn that into a book as well.
Very nice. Why
to raise funds for social justice. I forget what it's called, social justice for children books. So it's going to be a fundraiser.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Barbara. This was wonderful. I'm so glad we made time for it, and I should be keeping in touch with you.
Okay, thank you. I enjoyed talking to you as well. Stay safe.
Stay safe.